The music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
One day you're living in pure luxury, and the next you're locked in one of NYC's most violent prisons. Sounds unreal, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Sean Diddy Combs. How did he go from superstar to inmate? Let's dive in. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, wait, Diddy? Prison? How does that even happen? You're not alone. This is the same guy we've seen on private jets, walking red carpets, and living in multi-million-dollar mansions, right? But life took a wild turn for Diddy in 2024 when he ended up behind bars at one of the most violent detention centers in New York City, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, or as we'll call it, MDC Brooklyn. It all started earlier this year when federal agents raided Diddy's properties in Florida and California. They were searching for evidence tied to some serious criminal charges, and let's just say they didn't leave empty-handed. AR-15 rifles with scratched off serial numbers, illegal drugs, even a drum magazine. Yeah, not the kind you play music on. Sounds intense, right? But here's where it gets weird. Despite all this stuff being found, Diddy wasn't actually charged for possessing any of it. So what was Diddy actually charged with? Get ready for this. It wasn't just your typical legal drama. His charges were heavy. Racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. What? That's right. And here's the kicker. These charges were tied to what prosecutors described as freak-offs. Now I know what you're thinking. Freak-offs? What the heck does that even mean? Well, according to prosecutors, these were wild sex parties that Diddy allegedly organized, and the government claimed they weren't consensual. Even worse, it said Diddy would drug his victims and record everything, then use those recordings as blackmail to keep them silent. Shocking, right? But let's not pause for a second. Can you imagine being at the top of the music world, then suddenly being hit with accusations like this? It's no wonder the case blew up in the media. Okay, so now let's fast forward to Diddy's life in prison. After his arrest in September, Diddy ended up in MDC Brooklyn, a place that's earned a reputation for being one of the most violent and dangerous prisons in New York City. You'd think celebrities might get special treatment in prison, right? Well, think again. MDC is not a place for the faint of heart. It's a federal jail known for overcrowding, violence, and some pretty horrific conditions. Seriously, people have died in this place. In fact, just in the past few years, there have been multiple suicides and even murders behind these walls. Can you believe that? You've probably heard of other high-profile inmates who spend time there. R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell, and more recently, the cryptocurrency guy Sam Bankman-Fried. But what's crazy is that despite being famous, Diddy didn't get off easy. In fact, the judges overseeing his case were so concerned about public safety that they denied his bail twice. Diddy's defense team even offered a $50 million bail package complete with restrictions like GPS monitoring and limited visitation, but the court wasn't having it. Instead, he was stuck in the same brutal environment as everyone else. And here's where it gets even more interesting. You might think that because of his celebrity status, Diddy was able to coast through his time there, but life inside MDC was a whole new reality for him. So what was life like for Diddy inside one of NYC's most dangerous prisons? It was nothing like the life of luxury he was used to. First off, he was placed in a section of the prison known as the SHU, that's the Special Housing Unit. It's basically a more isolated part of the prison where high-profile inmates are kept away from the general population for their own safety. You might think that sounds like a cushy deal, but it's still prison. Isolation can really mess with your head. Inside MDC, Diddy's day-to-day life was a far cry from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Forget about private chefs or designer clothes. His meals, noodles, cereal, and maybe some peas if he's lucky. The food at MDC is as basic as it gets, and while he could buy some snacks from the prison commissary, everything is wildly overpriced. Imagine paying $7.50 for a 6-pack of Hershey bars. talk about a reality check, right? And when it came to his living conditions, let's just say Diddy had to adjust quickly. Gone were the days of plush beds and sprawling mansions. Instead, he was sleeping on a basic prison bunk and had access to only 3 showers a week. 3! And with only 1 hour of recreation time a day, Diddy's world has seriously shrunk. But get this, he didn't let that bring him down. Reports say Diddy kept himself in shape, sticking to a workout routine even with the limited resources in prison. Can you imagine? He went from luxury gyms to doing push-ups on a cold prison floor. Really makes you think, doesn't it? But what about mentally? How did Diddy handle being locked up in a place with such a bad reputation? Well, it turns out that he was placed on suicide watch, though his legal team was quick to clarify that Diddy wasn't actually suicidal. It's just a precaution that high-profile inmates sometimes face given the pressure of being in such an intense environment. And if you think about it, it does make sense. The guy went from having it all to being trapped in a violent prison where his every move was controlled. Justin Paperny, a prison consultant who works with high-profile clients, commented that surviving a place like NYC comes down to mental resilience. Diddy had to learn to adapt, and fast. He didn't have access to his team of lawyers or advisors as freely as he did on the outside. Every conversation with his legal team was monitored, every move was watched. That's gotta be a huge shift for someone who's used to calling the shots, right? But Paperny said something really interesting. He suggested that Diddy needed to focus on the things he could control, like his health and his defense strategy, rather than fixating on the grim realities of prison life. And honestly, that advice might have been a lifesaver. Because when you're in a place like NYC, giving into the stress can break you. But here's something you might not expect. Diddy's time in NYC also brought unexpected alliances. There were reports that he built relationships with other influential figures inside the prison, some of whom were also high-profile inmates. It seems that even behind bars, Diddy's networking skills didn't take a break. Whether it was gaining insight from others facing legal battles or finding common ground in such a harsh environment, Diddy managed to maintain connections that might prove valuable later on. It's fascinating to think about how even in one of the most violent prisons, the man who once ruled the entertainment world was still finding ways to stay connected and plan for the future. So what impact did all of this have on Diddy's life? Well, for one, it shattered the public's perception of him. Here was a man who for decades had built an empire on his name and reputation. He was a symbol of success, especially in the black community. But after these accusations, everything changed. What do you think? Could this experience really change Diddy, or is he going to bounce back stronger than ever? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into stories like this one. Thanks a lot for watching.